Welcome back to another investment portfolio update video. Now, I have to start by apologizing for my lack of content lately. I think my last portfolio update video was recorded either 3 or 4 months ago. Now, if you follow me on Instagram and TikTok, you would have known that I'm currently in the process of moving over to Dubai. So I've been back and forth between Dubai and the UK for the past 8 months or so. And in 2 weeks, I'm going to be permanently moving over to Dubai, which I'm really excited about. But yeah, it just took a lot out of me over the past 2 or 3 months. And as a result of that, I haven't had a chance to record as much as I would like to. But yeah, I'm really excited to move over and start a new life in Dubai. But like I said, I'll talk all things Dubai in a separate video. But anyway, I want to keep this intro as short as possible. So let's get right into the portfolio update. As always, we're going to kick things off with Vanguard, which is where the bulk of my investment money is. We'll then move on to InvestEngine, and then last but not least, head over to Trading212. So let me log into Vanguard and show you exactly what my portfolio is looking like. Okay, so I've just logged into Vanguard. Now, one of the most common questions I get is, what am I actually invested in my Vanguard account? And I'm gonna go through this in this video, but just before I go into that, let's actually look at my numbers and let's see how my portfolio has performed so far in 2025. So kicking things off, of course, in January. In January, this was a really good month for my portfolio. So my investment portfolio made me £3,173.28. Going to February, February was a red month actually, so I actually lost £2,500.87. This is when Trump started to showcase that he was going to bring in some tariffs, and of course the stock market reacted very negatively to this information. Fast forward into March, this was even worse. So in March, I lost £6,309.65, which was a tough pill to swallow, I must admit. March 2025 was actually my worst investing month ever since I started investing. So yeah, it was a really tough month. Now, of course, a lot of you know I've got a long-term mindset. So technically this loss is just a paper loss. I don't actually consider it a loss because I'm technically not selling my investment funds. So although, yeah, I've lost £6,309.65 on paper, I don't technically see it as a loss because I continue to buy every month. Okay, so fast forward into April, this was another red month for my Vanguard portfolio. Unfortunately, I lost £2,738.60. And then fast forward into May, we finally broke the 3-month losing streak. And I'm happy to share that I made £3,809.67. So this was a really, really good month. And I was happy to finally start seeing some growth in the portfolio again. Fast forward into June, again, another positive month. So I made £2,540.92 in June. And then fast forward into July, I made a whopping £4,577.43. Now, I actually think that this was my second best investing month ever since I started investing. So yeah, I'm super happy with how things performed in July. I believe it was either November 2024 or December 2024 that was my best investing month ever. So I think in that month alone, I made about £5,200. So yeah, July was a really, really good month. And yeah, I'm super happy with where things are at right now. And now my cumulative return now sits at £20,104.66. So I'm fairly happy with where things are at. Interestingly, my Vanguard portfolio recently just hit a new all-time high. So obviously, like I said, you know, things dropped very significantly in February, March, and April because of Trump's tariffs. And of course, my portfolio dropped by quite a bit. But since then, things have pretty much recouped back to its all-time high. And I believe this is a brand new all-time high for my portfolio, which, yeah, I'm super chuffed about. Okay, so that wraps up the numbers behind my Vanguard portfolio so far in 2025. Now let's actually take a look at what I'm invested in. Okay, so this is the holdings page on Vanguard, which basically shows my allocation split. And as you can see, 71.02% is invested in the US Equity Index Fund. So I've invested £46,181.21 of my own money. So these are the deposits that I've put into this fund. The growth from this fund is £14,685.48. So this is essentially the profit or the return on investment that this fund has made me. And it's these two numbers here. So the total cost plus the change that make up the total value in this fund, which is £60,866.70. And then the second fund in my portfolio is the FTSE Global All Cap Index Fund, which holds about 28.98% of my Vanguard portfolio. Now, I've deposited £20,794.82 into this fund. And as a result of investing that money into this fund has returned me £4,042.13, which takes my total value in this fund to £24,836.96. And then I do have some cash. So I have a whopping 88 pence sitting in cash. Annoyingly, in Vanguard, you can't invest cash that's less than £1. So yeah, that 88p is just gonna have to sit there for the time being, unfortunately, until it goes to over £1. And then I'll invest it into either one of those two funds. Okay, so now what I'll do is I'll head over to the fund page of each of these two funds, and I'll talk a bit more about what they do, what they track, and what their recent performance has been like. Okay, so this is the fund page for the US Equity Index Fund, which is where the majority of my portfolio is in. Now, there's two versions of this fund. There's the accumulation version, and then there's the income version. Now, I use the accumulation version, and what this means basically is that any dividends that are paid out, they automatically get reinvested. So I never see the dividends coming in as cash because, like I said, the dividends are just auto reinvested. Whereas if you were to pick the income version, you would actually get those dividends paid as cash into your portfolio, and then you can do what you want with that cash. You can either decide to reinvest it if you want to, or you can withdraw that cash. Personally, I prefer the accumulation because it's just less admin work for me. I don't have to sit there and think, do I want to reinvest it or do I want to withdraw it? I know that all the dividends are just automatically reinvested back into the fund. So it's less work for me, really. Scrolling down ever so slightly, so you can see as of the 31st of July, 2025, this fund currently has 3,521 stocks in total. So what this means is, let's say you were to put in £100 into the US Equity Index Fund, you would have a very small ownership in 3,521 stocks. In terms of the fee, so this fund has an ongoing charge or an expense ratio of 0.1%. So this is basically a fee that the fund managers charge to manage the fund, which is very small and very, very affordable in my opinion. And then scrolling down to the past performance, which is probably the most important piece of information on this fund page, you can see how the fund has performed over the past 5 years. So as you know, with investing in the stock market, you're never guaranteed a particular annual growth. That's just the nature of the stock market. Things go up, things go down, and that's just essentially how the stock market works. So you're never guaranteed a fixed percent every month or every year. You just get the average of what the stock market is performing. So yeah, as you can see, over the past 5 years, this fund has done extremely well. And obviously that's a reflection of how the US economy has performed over the 5 years. So this fund specifically, and I probably should have mentioned this earlier, tracks US equities. So if I scroll up again, those 3,521 stocks that I mentioned earlier, those all relate to US-based companies that are listed on the stock market. So this particular fund doesn't just focus on large cap companies like the S&P 500 does. This actually also includes medium and small cap size companies also, which is why I really like the fund actually, because it's great for diversification. Obviously with the S&P 500, you only get exposure to 500 of the largest companies listed on the US stock market. Whereas with this fund, you get over 3,500. So it's a lot more diverse and I just prefer it. Now in the comment section, let me know if you've got any specific questions on this fund. Obviously that's a very high level summary of the fund. But if you've got any questions about it, just feel free to drop a comment and I'll get back to you. Now let's head over to the FTSE Global All Cap and let's look at the fund page for that fund. So this is the fund page for the FTSE Global All Cap. And again, just like I mentioned with the US Equity Index Fund, this also has two versions. So you have the accumulation type and the income type. And again, I invest in the accumulation version of this fund. Scrolling down, so in terms of the number of stocks that this fund is invested in, you see you get exposure to 7,147 stocks across the world. So this is a global tracking index fund, which is obviously different to the previous fund I mentioned, which just tracks US equities. This tracks equities across the world. So you get exposure to Europe, Asia, North America, you name it, you get exposure to the global economy. Now, this fund has a slightly higher ongoing charge of 0.23%. So the expense ratio is 0.23% for this fund, which is slightly higher than, of course, the US equity index fund. And then scrolling down to the past performance of the fund, here you can see the past performance. Again, over the past 5 years, I think this fund has done fairly well, to be honest. As you can see, since August last year, the fund's up by about 12%, so not too bad. Again, if you've got any questions about this particular fund, just feel free to drop something in the comments and I'll get back to you. Right, so that wraps up the Vanguard side of things. Just to summarize, as of the 5th of August, 2025, I currently have £85,704.54 invested with Vanguard. I'm fairly happy with where the portfolio is at right now. One day I can't wait to just log into Vanguard and see £100,000 plus. That would be pretty cool. So make sure you're subscribed to stay up to date with how things are going, because we are going to hit it. It's just a matter of timing. But anyway, that wraps up the Vanguard side of things. Now let's head over to InvestEngine and let me see what my InvestEngine portfolio is looking like. All right. So I've just logged into InvestEngine and my total balance across my stocks and shares ISA and SIPP is £10,562.62. And my total overall return is now sitting at £1,075.12. And just to quickly mention, I actually no longer contribute to my InvestEngine stocks and shares ISA. So any money that you see here is basically money that is just growing in the background, and I'm not actually actively contributing to this portfolio anymore. So yeah, let's head over to the ISA and see how things are performing. Scrolling down to the graph, I'm just going to toggle on this buy and sell event so that you can see when I actually contributed or when I actually bought into the portfolio. So these black dots are essentially purchases that I've made in the portfolio itself. As you can see, I haven't made a purchase since around the 22nd of November. So like I said, I no longer actively contribute to this portfolio. I'm just letting it grow in the background. As you can see, fairly similar to my Vanguard portfolio. So around the February/March time, things took quite a bit of a dip. I was actually in the red for a certain period of time. And then of course, things have recently picked up and I'm now in the green again. So I'm actually in a positive return of just short of £1,100. And then scrolling down to the portfolio allocation split. So I have £5,551.50 in FWRG, which is a global tracking ETF. I have £3,407.60 in VUAG, which is an S&P 500 tracking ETF. And then last but not least, I have £1,462.50 invested in XNAQ, which is a Nasdaq 100 ETF. So yeah, really happy with how the InvestEngine stocks and shares ISA is performing here. Pretty much at a new all-time high. So yeah, I can't really complain with where things are at right now. But yeah, now let's head over to the SIPP and let's see how the SIPP's performing. So as you can see, I have a whopping £140.99 in my InvestEngine SIPP. In terms of what this is invested in, so as you can see, all of this money goes straight to FWRG, which of course is the global tracking ETF. My SIPP and pension, I like to keep things as simple as possible, so that's why I just bung everything into global tracking ETFs. But yeah, the small amount of money I have here in my InvestEngine SIPP, I just literally used it to trial out the InvestEngine SIPP. I would recommend it, I just don't actively put any more money into it. But yeah, that wraps up my InvestEngine stocks and shares ISA and SIPP update. So just to summarize, I currently have £10,562.62 invested with InvestEngine. Now let's take a look at my Trading212 account. And last but not least, we have Trading212. So I've just logged into my Trading212 account. And as you can see, I have £344.32 invested in my Trading212 stocks and shares ISA, which has provided me with a return of £36.35. Now scrolling down to my ISA allowance, as you can see, so far this financial year, I've only contributed £208 into my Trading212 stocks and shares ISA. Now, if you've been following my journey for a while now, you would have known that I've recently just bought a property in Dubai, and that's taken a lot of my cash flow right now. So I haven't had a chance to deposit as much as I would like, but I'm really hoping over the next few months, I'm able to go back to my regular monthly contributions of £1,600. So that's how much averagely I was investing into the stock market before I purchased my apartment. So I'm really hoping, I'm able to get my cash flow back up, and I can start, of course, contributing more into my ISA accounts again. And then scrolling down to what this money is invested in, so fairly similar to my InvestEngine account, I hold 3 funds. So the first fund is the Invesco FTSE All World. The ticker code for this is FWRG. I currently have £188.35 invested in this fund. The next fund I hold is the X-Trackers Nasdaq 100. The ticker code for this is XNAQ. I have £78.50 invested into this fund. And then last but not least, we have the Vanguard S&P 500. Ticker code for this is VUAG. And I have £77.38 invested in this fund. So far, I'm really liking using Trading212, and it will be my stocks and shares ISA of choice for this year. Like I mentioned, I haven't had a chance to deposit as much money as I would like to, but like I mentioned, hopefully over the next few months or so, I'm gonna be able to start depositing back into the account again. Now let's add up the total balance across all of these accounts and see what the total balance is sitting at. So with Vanguard, I have £85,704.54. With InvestEngine, I have £10,562.62. And then with Trading212, my balance was sitting at £344.35. And now adding all of these accounts gives me a final total portfolio balance of £96,611.51. So I'm now less than £4,000 away from a 6-figure investment portfolio, which is crazy. To me, it still seems crazy to say. If you enjoyed the video and you found it insightful, please drop a like and a comment. And if you're not subscribed to the channel, please do consider subscribing to my channel. It really does help keep me motivated to make these portfolio update videos for you guys. But that's it for this video, folks. I'll catch you back again soon for another portfolio update. And who knows, next portfolio update video, it might be £100,000. So I guess we'll see.